13 paintings vanished into thin air. No ransom demand, no trace. For over 3 decades, the world has been chasing ghosts, trying to solve what experts now call the greatest art theft in modern history. Hey everyone, before we dive deep into this mystery, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it if you love stories about power, greed, and the secrets billionaires don't want you to know. Because by the end of this one, I promise you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about crime, art, and what money can really buy. Now, let me take you back to Boston, March 18th, 1990. It's a cold, quiet night, the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. Inside the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, 2 security guards are on shift. Nothing unusual, just 2 guys watching monitors, pacing marble halls surrounded by some of the most priceless art on earth. Paintings by Rembrandt Degas, art so valuable it makes your bank account feel like pocket change. At around 1:24 a.m., a car pulls up outside. 2 men step out, dressed as police officers. They buzz the museum's side door, claiming they're responding to a disturbance call. The guards, thinking it's just routine, let them in. But minutes later, those same guards are handcuffed, duct-taped, and left blindfolded in the basement. The officers were no cops. They were 2 men who walked into history without firing a single shot. For the next 81 minutes, they moved through the museum like ghosts. There are no alarms, no rush. They are calm, deliberate. They go straight for 13 specific works, ignoring countless others. Paintings are cut clean from their frames, the empty frames left hanging like skeletons on the walls. When morning comes, the museum looks completely untouched from the outside, but inside, $500 million in art is gone. Just gone, without a single trace. Now here's where the story really starts to twist. You see, the thieves didn't just take any asterisk art. They took pieces that weren't just valuable, they were irreplaceable. One of them, the Concert by Vermeer, is considered one of the rarest paintings on the planet. Another, Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, was his only seascape ever painted. Gone. Just gone. And the strangest part, no one ever tried to sell them. No ransom was ever demanded. No black market whispers that stuck. It's like those paintings were swallowed by the earth itself. The FBI launched what would become the most expensive art investigation in history. They chased down every lead imaginable: mobsters, shady art dealers, ex-cons, even corrupt cops. But nothing, every single trail, led to a dead end. As the years passed, theories started multiplying like wildfire. Some say it was an inside job, that one of the guards was in on it from the start. Others claim it was a mob hit, with the art stolen as collateral for a drug debt. A few even believe the paintings were used as secret bargaining chips to get reduced prison sentences. But here's what really gets me. None of those theories fully explain how precise this heist was. These guys didn't just stumble around in the dark. They knew exactly what they were doing. No cameras caught their faces, no alarms were tripped, and not a single fingerprint was left behind. Think about that for a second. 2 fake cops walked into one of the most secure art museums in the world and walked out with a fortune. And we're not talking about small money here. Today, those paintings would be worth over $1 billion combined. That's more than the estimated value of the Mona Lisa. It's more than the entire GDP of some small countries. Now here's what it gets eerie. Decades later, the museum still has the empty frames hanging on the walls. They've never replaced the stolen art. The frames have become a symbol of a wound that has never healed. When visitors walk through the Gardner Museum today, they don't just see beauty, they see absence. Every empty frame whispers the same question: where did the paintings go? Over the years, strange clues have surfaced, tantalizing investigators. In the mid-1990s, a Boston art dealer claimed to have seen 2 of the paintings in a private villa over in Ireland. Another tip led investigators to Maine, where a mob associate bragged about holding something the world wants. But every search came up empty. Every lead ended in frustrating silence. Some FBI agents believe the art was destroyed long ago, maybe burned in a panic, or hidden inside walls that were later demolished. Others insist it's still out there, locked away in some billionaire's private hidden collection, traded quietly among the ultra-wealthy like forbidden gold. And honestly, that theory fits a little too well. Because when you follow the money, you find power, and when power gets involved, justice can become a ghost. But before I tell you what the FBI uncovered and how the investigation took a shocking turn years later, I want you to picture something. Imagine you walk into your living room one morning. The sunlight is hitting the wall just right, but one thing is missing: your favorite family photo. The frame is still there. Maybe the glass is even cracked, but the picture itself is gone. Now multiply that feeling by 30 and make every image a priceless piece of human history. That's what the Gardner Museum felt that morning. This wasn't just a theft. It was an erasure. We often think of great art as being untouchable, timeless, protected behind velvet ropes and reinforced glass. But on March 18, 1990, the city of Boston woke up to a nightmare that shattered that illusion forever. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a jewel of the city, stood eerily silent. The doors were locked, but the night guards were gone. And then the gut-wrenching discovery: 13 masterpieces, including works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Degas, had vanished. All that remained were 13 empty frames, their torn canvas edges hanging on the walls like open wounds. The news exploded. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, and a single question echoed through the city: how? How could this happen here? Boston wasn't some international crime hub. It was supposed to be safe. But the headline screamed a different story: $500 million in art stolen in midnight raid. At the time, it was the largest property theft in world history, a crime so audacious it felt like something out of a Hollywood movie. The FBI descended on the city, calling it unprecedented. Art crime specialists, forensics teams, and behavioral profilers arrived, ready to crack the case. But as the hours turned into days, a chilling reality set in. The thieves had been ghosts. No fingerprints, no alarms triggered, no witnesses who saw anything other than two men dressed as police officers and the museum's security cameras. Utterly useless. The system recorded over its own tapes every 24 hours. By the time investigators got to them, the evidence had literally erased itself. Inside the FBI's Boston field office, the tension was palpable. Veteran Special Agent Jeffrey Kelly reportedly looked at the crime scene photos and muttered, "This isn't amateur work. This is surgical." But even a surgeon leaves a trace. The hunt had begun. The first person of interest was obvious: Rick Abath, the 23-year-old night guard who buzzed the fake cops, and he was a long-haired musician just trying to make some extra cash, not a hardened criminal. In interviews he seemed cooperative, but strangely come almost to come for someone who had just been tied up while a billion-dollar collection was stolen right under his nose. The FBI dug into his past but found nothing: no criminal record, no mob ties. But then a bizarre detail emerged from the security logs. Just before the thieves arrived, Abath had opened and closed a side door. When questioned, his answer was as simple: "I don't remember." Was it a memory lapse from a terrifying night? Or was it a lie? Still, Abath didn't fit the profile of a mastermind. If he was involved, he wasn't the one calling the shots. Someone bigger had to be pulling the strings. And that's when the whispers started whispers about the Boston underworld. The late 80s and early 90s were a wild time for organized crime in Boston. Mobsters ran the docks, the unions, and the drug trade. But they usually stayed away from fine art. It was too recognizable, too hard to sell. Unless it wasn't about the money. FBI files later, unsealed, revealed the startling theory: the heist might have been the work of the infamous Irish mob, led by the most feared man in Boston, James Whitey Bulger. Bulger was known for his ruthlessness, but also for his deep connections within law enforcement. If anyone could make evidence disappear, it was him. A rumor circulated that one of Bulger's associates was heard bragging in a South Boston bar about owning something the world would pay any price for. But when FBI agents tried to follow that lead, the associate turned up dead execution style in a parking lot. The trail went cold again. The investigation was hitting a brick wall. Months turned into agonizing years. The Gardner Museum, desperate, began offering a reward. It started at $1 million, then jumped to $5 million, and eventually reached a staggering $10 million. And here's the crucial part. The reward was for information leading to the artist's safe return. No questions asked. They didn't care about arrests or convictions. They just wanted their masterpieces back. But even with $10 million on the table, the silence was deafening. Nothing. Then, in 1997, 7 years after the heist, a flicker of hope. A federal prisoner and known art thief named David Turner claimed he knew where some of the paintings were. He told the FBI that mobsters had stashed them in a warehouse in Connecticut. Agents scrambled, planning a raid. They stormed the warehouse, ready to finally close this case. And inside, they found nothing. Just empty crates and fresh dust. It was another soul-crushing dead end, but behind closed doors, a darker, more complex picture was emerging. Evidence began pointing toward a group of seasoned criminals with ties reaching far beyond Boston. FBI sources described a web stretching from the mob strongholds in Ireland all the way to wealthy, anonymous collectors in the Middle East. This changed everything. Could the paintings have been used as currency, traded for drugs, weapons, or even political favors? Art is the perfect black market currency. Untraceable, portable, and priceless. The case had officially gone global. Interpol got involved. Leads poured in from Italy, Japan, and South America. Each tip seemed promising, and each one dissolved into thin air. The years rolled on, and the mystery only deepened. Then, in 2013, something extraordinary happened. The FBI held a press conference and announced they had finally identified the thieves. They claimed the men responsible were members of a New England crime syndicate, but that both were now deceased. The Bureau stated the paintings had passed through several hands within organized crime networks before vanishing again. But here's the twist. The FBI never released the suspects' names. They never explained how they knew, and they never said where the art might be now. It was as if they solved half the puzzle and then locked the rest of the pieces in a vault. With this information vacuum, conspiracy theories exploded. Some claimed the CIA was involved, using the art for off-the-books operations. Others were convinced the shadowy billionaire had commissioned the theft and now keeps the masterpieces in a private, climate-controlled vault somewhere. A few even believed the paintings were swapped with forgeries before the heist even happened, meaning the real ones were never actually stolen from the museum. Every year, new experts pop up, claiming to have cracked the case. A fisherman in Maine swore he found a Rembrandt under a tarp in a lobster shack. A retired mobster insisted he buried the Vermeer under his cousin's barn. None of it has ever checked out. And yet, the legend just keeps growing. To this day, more than 3 decades later, if you visit the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, you'll see them. The empty frames still hang on the walls. It's not just a sign of hope, it's a solemn promise. A promise that someday, someone will come forward, because in the end, great art is about legacy. And right now, someone out there, someone still breathing, watching, and hiding is holding that legacy hostage. They say time heals all wounds. But when it comes to the Gardner heist, time only makes the mystery deeper, and the empty frames more haunting. By the time the new millennium rolled around, the Gardner heist had become more than just a crime. It had become a myth. College students whispered about it in dorms, historians debated it in lectures, and amateur detectives built entire websites devoted to cracking the case. But behind this public obsession, something far more unsettling was happening. The trail was getting darker, not colder. Inside the FBI's art crime team headquarters, agents were drowning in decades of files torn and filled with contradictions. Evidence had gone missing. Key witnesses had died. But there was one line of investigation that refused to die. The idea that someone powerful had commissioned the theft. Let's rewind to 1990 again. To that exact moment, those 2 fake cops walked into the museum. Everything about their behavior was to calm. They didn't just grab random art. They took specific pieces of Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee, Vermeer's The Concert, a Manet, a Dijk, and several rare works from the Dutch Golden Age. And here's the puzzle. Each one of these masterpieces was virtually unsellable on the open market. So why steal them? Most thieves rob for profit. But these men didn't take the museum's most valuable priceless bronze eagle finial worth millions more than some of the paintings. They also ignored smaller, easier to carry treasures. It was as if they were following a shopping list. That single detail haunted investigators for years. Someone had given these men instructions, and that's when a new theory began to emerge. One whispered by art insiders and echoed in FBI circles. The theory that the Gardner heist wasn't just a robbery, it was a delivery. According to several confidential informants, an unknown European collector, possibly tied to old money and offshore accounts, had put out a quiet order for these specific paintings years before the theft. The works were meant to disappear into a private vault, never to be seen by the public again. If this is true, it would explain the surgical precision of the crime, the complete lack of a ransom demand, and the fact that none of the art ever surfaced on the black market. But there's an even darker twist. A few declassified FBI memos from the early 2000s mention potential state involvement. Some agents believe that at least one of the paintings might have been used in a covert transaction traded between intelligence networks as collateral during secret operations. Art, after all, has always been the perfect bargaining chip. You can't trace it, you can move it across borders, and it holds a value no government can publicly acknowledge. And then there was the Vatican theory. Yes, the Vatican. In 2016, a former Boston journalist named Stephen Kirkjian, who'd covered the case for decades, hinted that investigators had quietly explored a bizarre but intriguing angle, that some of the stolen paintings had ended up in the hands of religious institutions via underground collectors in Italy. No hard evidence ever surfaced. But, like so many theories in this case, it simply refused to die. Meanwhile, whispers of the Irish connection. One retired agent confessed in an interview that they'd received tips all the way from Dublin clams that the Vermeer and the Rembrandt were hidden somewhere in West Cork by remnants of the Irish Republican Army. The IRA at the time was known for using stolen art as leverage in arms negotiations. It sounded insane, until you remember that some of those same networks had deep ties to Boston's Irish-American underworld. Still, the evidence was thin. Every time the Bureau thought they were close, the lead would collapse either through a lack of proof or a conveniently timed death. In 2004, one of the last living suspects, Robert Bobby Donati, was found murdered in the trunk of his car, beaten, bound, and executed. He'd been on the FBI's radar since the early days. Donati was an old-school thief, known for safecracking and mob ties. Just a month before the heist, witnesses had seen him scoping out the museum. But after his death, the trail went silent again. And that silence, it said everything. Because silence meant someone wanted this story buried for good. By now, the Gardner heist had become the holy grail of criminal mysteries. Filmmakers, journalists, and private investigators all took their shot at solving it. Some even claimed to have found proof of the painting's survival hidden clues in old photos, coded notes, and auction house ledgers. One of the most intriguing leads came from a retired Interpol agent in 2018, who leaked a document suggesting one of the stolen Degas sketches had surfaced in Dubai. The details matched perfectly. Brush strokes, the framing, even the type of parchment. But when the museum requested to verify it, the piece vanished from the registry. Gone. Deleted overnight. The Gardner Museum issued a statement that still stands today. If you're in possession of any of the stolen works, we offer complete confidentiality, no charges, no questions, just bring them home. That's when it hit people. They weren't just chasing criminals anymore, they were chasing ghosts, because for all the investigation, for all the money spent, no one has ever produced a single painting, new recoveries, just empty frames hanging like tombstones in the gallery, haunting reminders of how fragile history can be. And yet, some still believe the truth is hiding in plain sight. Art historians often point out that the stolen pieces share a common theme: human struggle. Storms, performers, music, battle. Was that just a coincidence? Or was it symbolic? A few conspiracy theorists have taken it even further, claiming the selection of paintings forms a hidden messagey kind of spiritual riddle about greed and loss. They argued that whoever took them wasn't after art at all, but meaning a deeper commentary on ownership, power, and secrecy. Sound crazy? Maybe. But then again, so does everything about this case. Over 30 years later, the Gardner Museum still leaves those empty frames untouched. They aren't just placeholders, they're provocations. It's as if the museum itself is saying to the world, we haven't forgotten, and neither should you. Somewhere, right now, behind a locked door, beneath layers of dust and time, those paintings still exist. Maybe they're in a billionaire's private vault. Maybe they're under a false wall in an abandoned estate. Maybe they're even hidden in plain sight, hanging in someone's study while they sip wine and smile at a secret no one else knows. And until someone finds them, the mystery lives on. A whisper from 1990 that refuses to fade. Because this was never just about stolen art. It's about stolen truth. It's been more than 3 decades since the night the Gardner Museum fell silent. 30 plus years of theories, lies, and empty promises. But here's the thing. Every time investigators get close to the truth, something gore or someone pulls the curtain shut again. In the early 2010s, a new FBI task force revisited every file, re-interviewed every suspect, and used technology the original agents could only dream of. Facial recognition, digital mapping, DNA cross-checks, all to chase ghosts. And for a moment, it looked like they were about to crack the case. Because in 2013, the Bureau made an announcement that shook the world. We've identified the thieves, but there was a catch. The names they revealed belonged to men who were already dead. The FBI believed the heist was carried out by two known members of a New England crime ring, one of them a former convict with ties to the Italian mob, the other a lifelong thief familiar with museum layouts. They didn't act alone, though. The Bureau theorized they'd stolen the paintings and stashed them temporarily in Connecticut or Philadelphia, and then something went wrong. One theory suggests that before they could sell or move the art, one of the men was killed in a gang dispute. The other panicked, hid the paintings, and died without ever revealing where. If that's true, then somewhere out there, maybe in an attic, a storage unit, or behind a brick, wall sits over $500 million in missing art, rotting in the dark. And that image, it's haunting. The public never learned the names officially, but insiders whispered them: George Heisfelder, Bobby Guarente, Robert Gentile, all connected through the Boston mob, all dead or too old to testify. In 2016, the last man believed to have known anything, Robert Gentile, passed away, taking what little he knew with him. When FBI agents raided his Connecticut home years earlier, they found something chilling: hidden cash, police hats, and a small piece of paper listing the stolen paintings, but no art. When asked by reporters if he knew where the paintings were, Gentile simply laughed. "If I did," he said, "I'd be living in Tahiti." But what if he wasn't lying? What if Gentile truly didn't know because someone else had taken him long before he could? Some investigators now believe a third party intercepted the loot, possibly from within law enforcement or intelligence circles, and moved it before it could surface. Remember, the initial response to the heist was chaotic. Evidence handling was sloppy. Key details went unrecorded for hours. It's not impossible that someone used the confusion to take control of the paintings, for reasons the public was never meant to know. And then there's the money trail. Over the decades, millions of dollars in private finder's fees have been quietly offered by billionaires, museum patrons, and even underground art dealers for anyone who could produce proof of a painting's survival. None ever did. But in 2019, an encrypted file appeared on a darknet art forum claiming to hold authentic images of the Vermeer and Rembrandt. The account that posted it vanished within hours, and the file. Corrupted, unreadable, but tech experts who managed to open fragments said the color palette, the brushstrokes, and even the damaged corners were eerily accurate. Was it real, or just another cruel tease? Either way, it reminded the world of one fact: the Gardner heist is still alive. Today, those empty frames still hang in the museum's Dutch room, silent witnesses to the greatest unsolved art crime in history. Tourists stand before them every day, phones in hand, staring at nothing. But somehow, that nothing feels powerful. It's a void filled with questions. Who did this? Why those paintings? And most importantly, where are they now? Maybe that's why this story endears, because every time you think it's over, it breathes again. Some even believe the paintings will resurface accidentally hidden behind drywall, lost in a dusty inheritance, or found by a contractor who has no idea what he stumbled on. It's happened before. Entire collections of Nazi-looted art have been discovered in random apartments decades later. So who's to say it couldn't happen again? And yet, there's something poetic about their disappearance. Maybe the art was never meant to return. Maybe it's part of a larger message, a mirror reflecting the human obsession with possession itself. After all, those paintings represented power, beauty, and wealth, the three forces that have driven men to madness since civilization began. So, when you stand before those empty frames, maybe you're not just looking at loss. Maybe you're looking at a warning. Because somewhere out there, someone knows the truth. Someone still keeps the secret alive, perhaps, a family that inherited a vault, a collector with too much to lose, or a man who once took an oath of silence. And when that secret finally breaks, if it ever does, the world won't just find missing art. It'll uncover a hidden chapter of power, greed, and the dangerous seduction of beauty itself. Until then, the Gardner heist remains what it's always been, a ghost story. Not the kind with screams or shadows, but one painted in oil, framed in gold and lost to time. The kind of story that whispers through history and dares you to believe it's still unfolding. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. I'll see you in the next one.